The small space station floated quietly in the darkness at the very edge of our solar system. It looked like a giant crystal, but it was really a spy station. For 800 years, it had been watching Earth and recording everything humans did. Today was just another boring day for the aliens inside. Commander Velthara stretched her long, crystal-like arms and looked at her computer screen. She was part of a race called the Zephyri, and her job was to watch humans like a prison guard. The reports on her desk were always the same: humans fighting each other in small wars. Humans sending rockets that could barely reach Mars. Humans sending radio messages into space, begging someone to talk to them. Still acting like children, she said to her helper, shaking her head. 800 years locked up, and they still don't understand why. Velthara remembered the stories her grandmother told her about the human wars. Back then, humans had big spaceships and powerful weapons. They spread across the galaxy like a disease, attacking everyone they met. They didn't try to talk or make friends. They just wanted to take over everything. The three oldest alien races in the galaxy had to work together to stop them. The Zephyri were like living crystals who could share thoughts. The Keth were like giant bugs who worked as one big family. The Valon were pure energy beings who could become any shape they wanted. It took 50 years of fighting, but finally the aliens won. They built invisible walls around Earth's solar system, so humans could never leave again. That was 800 years ago, and the walls were still there. Every day, Velthara read the same reports. Humans were still fighting wars on Earth, but only small ones with old weapons. They had built some space stations and walked on their moon, but they couldn't go any farther. Sometimes they sent messages into space asking to trade or just to talk, but the aliens never answered. The galaxy was peaceful without humans, and everyone wanted to keep it that way. What Velthara didn't know was that someone was watching her, right back. Deep under the surface of Earth's moon, in a secret base that existed in many dimensions at the same time, Dr. Lee Jun-ho sat in front of hundreds of computer screens. He was a thin man with grey hair who had spent his whole life studying the aliens who kept humans trapped. Jun-ho's computers were not like normal computers. They used something called quantum consciousness, which meant they could think in ways that seemed impossible. For 300 years, these computers had been secretly watching the Watchers. They knew exactly where every alien ship was. They knew how the aliens talked to each other. They knew the aliens' biggest fears and weaknesses. "Report, Doctor," said a voice from the shadows. The Shadow Council was a group of humans that no government knew about. They had been planning something big for centuries. "Everything is ready," Jun-ho said quietly. "The aliens think we're still primitive. They see our small wars and think we're weak. They see our simple rockets and think we're stupid. They have no idea what we've really been doing all this time. While the aliens watched Earth, they missed the real work happening in secret. Hidden factories on the dark side of the moon built. Ships that could bend space and time. Secret labs created tiny machines smaller than atoms that could travel anywhere. Underground bases trained soldiers who could fight in ways the aliens had never seen. The aliens thought humans were still trapped, but humans had learned to build doors the aliens couldn't see. For 800 years, humans had been slowly, quietly, patiently preparing for the day they would be free. "The seeding ships reached their target 60 years ago," Jun-ho continued. "Our people are already living on 400 alien worlds. They've been there for generations, having families, learning the alien languages, making friends. When the time comes, they'll prove that humans can live in peace. And the other preparations? Complete. We know how to break their crystal minds. We know how to confuse their hive networks. We know how to trap their energy forms. Everything they think makes them powerful actually makes them vulnerable to someone who understands how they work." Jun-ho looked at a picture of Earth on his wall. His great-great-grandmother had been alive when the walls went up. She died dreaming of stars she would never see. But her sacrifice and the sacrifice of billions of humans over 8 centuries was about to mean something. "Phase 1 is complete," he said into his communicator. "They see only what we want them to see. 800 years of silence ends tomorrow." In space, Commander Velthara yawned and filed another boring report about primitive humans. She had no idea that tomorrow everything would change forever. Captain Kim Min-seo floated in zero gravity, looking out through the clear walls of her ship at the endless black of space. The UHSV Silent Storm was invisible to any alien sensors, hidden in the empty space between star systems, where no one ever looked. She was proud of her ship, but even more proud of what it represented. Around her, scattered across the galaxy, were 3,000 more ships just like hers. The Shadow Fleet had been built in complete secrecy over 400 years. These weren't ordinary spaceships. The aliens had never seen anything like them because humans had been forced to think differently. While the crystal aliens improved, their glowing computers and the bug aliens grew bigger. Biological ships, humans had discovered something completely new. Their ships existed in a strange state, where they were both there and not there at the same time, like a coin spinning in the air before it lands. Only when someone directly looked at them would they become fully real. The materials came from dead rocks floating in space that no one claimed. The power came from tapping into the basic energy that holds the universe together. Every piece was built by tiny machines that could copy themselves, working for decades in the cold darkness where no one would notice. "Give me the report," Min Seo said to her second-in-command. Lieutenant Park Da-eun pulled up glowing charts in the air between them. "All the seeding missions worked perfectly, Captain. We now have hidden human colonies on 400 different alien worlds. The communication beacons are active across 37 sectors of space. The microscopic machines we sent out years ago have spread everywhere the aliens live." Min Seo nodded slowly. This was the result of the longest, most patient plan in human history. 800 years ago, when the aliens first trapped Earth, some humans had wanted to fight right away. Others wanted to give up and accept their fate. But the wisest humans chose a third path. They decided to wait, learn, and prepare. Generation after generation of humans had worked on this plan. Children grew up knowing they would never see the results of their work, but they did it anyway for their grandchildren's grandchildren. Scientists spent their entire lives developing new technologies they would never get to use. Engineers built ships they would never fly. Soldiers trained for battles they would never fight. The preparation had taken many forms. First, humans had to learn everything about their captors. They studied every alien broadcast, every energy signature, every patrol route. They figured out how the crystal aliens shared their thoughts, how the bug aliens worked together like a giant family, and how the energy aliens could change their shape. While studying their enemies, humans also sent out secret missions. Not the big, obvious spaceships that the aliens would notice, but tiny ships that moved slowly and quietly. These ships carried small groups of humans who would land on alien worlds and blend in with the local population. The children of these secret colonists grew up as aliens, learning their languages and customs, making friends and falling in love. Suddenly, a shimmering figure appeared in the air next to Min Seo. Dr. Yang Hyejin's body was still on Earth, but her mind had been transmitted across space through quantum entanglement, a technology that let humans communicate instantly across any distance without sending signals the aliens could detect. "I have the final reports," Hyejin said, her holographic form flickering slightly. "We've cracked all their codes. The energy aliens communicate using patterns we can now copy perfectly. We've mapped every connection in the bug aliens' group mind. Most importantly, we found the exact frequency that will break the crystal aliens' shared consciousness." This was the breakthrough they had been waiting for. For centuries, humans had tried to understand how each alien race worked. The crystal aliens were strongest because they could all think together as one, but this also meant they all had the same weakness. The bug aliens followed their queens without question, but if you confused the queens, all the workers would be lost. The energy aliens thought they were superior because they had no physical form, but this meant they could be trapped if you knew how. "What about our people living on the alien worlds?" Min Seo asked. "They're ready," Hyejin replied with a small smile. "Some of them have been waiting their whole lives for this moment. Their parents and grandparents lived as aliens, had alien friends, even married aliens, and had children together. They've proven that humans don't have to be enemies with other races. When we reveal ourselves, they'll show the galaxy that we can all live together in peace." Min Seo thought about those brave humans who had spent generations living in secret. They had raised families on worlds far from Earth, always knowing that one day they might have to choose between their human heritage and their alien homes. Many of them had never even seen Earth, but they still carried the dream of freedom in their hearts. "How many aliens know the truth?" Mincio asked. "More than you might think," Hyejin said. "Some of the younger aliens have started asking questions about why humans are still locked up. Some have even helped our people in secret. Not everyone agrees with keeping us trapped forever." Mincio looked out at the stars again, thinking about all the worlds where humans and aliens were already living together without the governments knowing. In a few hours, everything would change. The 800 years of hiding and waiting were almost over. "Send the signal," she said quietly. "It's time to come home." Commander Velthara was drinking her morning energy drink when her computer started screaming. Red warning lights flashed across her crystal control room as alarm. Sounds echoed through the monitoring station. She had never heard these alarms before in 30 years of watching humans. "What's happening?" she shouted to her crew. "The Kepler 442 station just disappeared." Her assistant replied, his crystal body flickering with panic. "Not destroyed, not damaged, gone, like it was never there." Velthara's crystal heart sank. The Kepler 442 station had been watching humans for 800 years. It was one of the oldest and most secure monitoring posts in the galaxy. How could it just vanish? Before she could think of an answer, more alarms started going off. Then, more. Within 3 hours, 12 monitoring stations across the galaxy had gone completely dark. No explosion, no distress calls, no wreckage. They simply stopped existing. On every alien world, emergency meetings were called. The crystal aliens, the bug aliens, and the energy aliens all gathered in panic. Nothing like this had ever happened before. The monitoring stations were supposed to be impossible to destroy. They existed in multiple dimensions and were protected by the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Admiral Kethvar was one of the most powerful energy beings in the galaxy. His body was made of pure electricity and light, and he could become any shape he wanted. He had fought in the original human wars 800 years ago and remembered how dangerous humans could be. When the stations started disappearing, he immediately gathered a fleet of 200 ships to investigate. "Take us to the Vega sector," he ordered his crew. 3 stations disappeared there at exactly the same time. "I want to know what did this." The journey took 2 days at maximum speed. When they arrived at where the monitoring stations should have been, Kethvar's energy form flickered with confusion. There was nothing there, not even debris. It was as if the stations had been erased from reality itself. "Admiral," his sensor officer called out, "I'm detecting strange readings. There are ships here, but they're not here at the same time." "That's impossible," Kethvar replied. "Nothing can exist and not exist simultaneously." "Sir, the readings are getting stronger. Something is materializing right in front of us." Suddenly, the empty space in front of them began to shimmer like heat waves. Slowly, a massive ship became visible. It was unlike anything in the alien databases. The hull seemed to bend light around it, and parts of it appeared to exist in dimensions. That hurt to look at directly, but the most shocking thing was what happened next. A human figure began to appear on Kethvar's bridge, starting as a faint outline and slowly becoming solid. The man was young, wearing a uniform that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. His name tag read, Captain Oh Sung-woo. "Good morning." "Admiral," Sung-woo said politely, as if materializing on an enemy ship was the most normal thing in the world. "We need to talk." Kethvar's energy form crackled with electricity. "This is impossible. The interdiction fields around your solar system are still active. No human ship can travel faster than light." "You're absolutely right," Sung-woo said, with a small smile. "The walls you built around our home are still there. We simply learned to walk through walls." All around them, more human ships began appearing. First 10, then 50, then hundreds. Each one was different, as if built by artists rather than engineers. Some ships looked like they were made of crystallized time. Others seemed to be folded space held together by pure mathematics. "How many ships do you have?" Kethvar demanded. 3,000 in this sector alone," Sung-woo replied calmly. "We've been building them for 400 years in the spaces between your patrols. While you watched our home, we were already living in yours." Across the galaxy, The same scene was playing out around every major alien world. Human ships were decloaking by the thousands, appearing from nowhere like ghosts becoming real. On the Crystal homeworld, transparent ships materialized in the clouds. On the Bug worlds, vessels that looked like metallic flowers bloomed in orbit. On the Energy worlds, ships made of controlled lightning danced between the plasma storms. The aliens had spent 8 centuries thinking humans were primitive and trapped. They had no idea that humans had been using that time to become something completely new. While the aliens improved their existing technology, humans had invented entirely different ways of traveling through space, of existing in multiple dimensions, of bending the laws of physics themselves. But the most shocking moment came when every communication device in the galaxy suddenly activated at once. A woman's voice, speaking in perfect translations of every known language simultaneously, filled every screen and speaker across thousands of worlds. "People of the galaxy," President Choi So-young said from her office on Earth, "I am speaking to you from the world you have kept in prison for 800 years. We are not your enemies, we never were. We are your neighbors, your potential friends, your fellow travelers among the stars. For 8 centuries, you have kept us silent, because you feared what you didn't understand. Today that silence ends." The message continued, broadcast on frequencies that should have been impossible to access, reaching every corner of space simultaneously. "We do not come in conquest. We do not seek revenge for our long imprisonment. We come offering partnership. We have learned much in our isolation, and we believe we have much to share. But we will no longer accept being caged like dangerous animals. We are free, and we will remain free." As the message ended, something even more shocking happened. On worlds across the galaxy, beings who had lived their entire lives as loyal alien citizens suddenly began revealing themselves as human. Teachers, doctors, farmers, artists, even some government officials, all removing disguises they had worn for generations. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of human silence was over, and the age of human awakening had begun. The alien leaders didn't waste any time. Within hours of the human reveal, every military ship in the galaxy received the same order: destroy the human fleet at all costs. The Crystal aliens launched their massive diamond-shaped battleships that could cut through asteroids like butter. The Bug aliens sent swarms of living ships that could repair themselves and fight as one mind. The Energy aliens deployed their most powerful warships made of controlled lightning and plasma. It should have been the end of humanity. 3,000 human ships against millions of alien vessels with 800 years of advanced technology. The aliens had weapons that could destroy entire planets and shields that had never been broken. This wasn't going to be a war, it was going to be an extermination. But something went wrong from the very first minute. Admiral Kethvar watched in horror as his flagship's computers started acting crazy. Instead of targeting human ships, his weapons were pointing at his own fleet. "What's happening to our systems?" he shouted. "Unknown virus in the network, sir." His technical officer replied, panic crackling through his energy form. "It's rewriting our navigation codes in real time." Across his fleet, the same thing was happening. Ships that had worked perfectly for centuries were suddenly turning on each other. Their communication systems were broadcasting strange signals. Their weapons were firing at random targets. The virus wasn't destroying their technology. It was making it work against them. "This is impossible," Kethvar said. "Our quantum encryption is unbreakable." Captain Osungwu's voice came through the communication system, calm as ever. "Admiral, your encryption is indeed excellent. We should know, we've been studying it for 300 years. On the Bug worlds, something even stranger was happening. Queen Mind Zeska ruled over 10 billion bug creatures, all connected to her thoughts. Like fingers on a hand, she could feel every one of her children, control every one of their actions, share every one of their experiences. It was the most beautiful thing in the universe, until suddenly, it wasn't. The connection just stopped. One moment she was a goddess controlling billions of minds. The next she was alone in her own head for the first time in her life. The silence was terrifying. Commander Lim Soo-jin walked into the Queen's throne room, her footsteps echoing in the sudden quiet. All around them, Billions of bug creatures stood motionless, confused, experiencing individual thought for the first time in their species' history. "What have you done to me?" the Queen gasped, her voice small and frightened without the chorus. "Of billions backing it up. I've given you something your people haven't had in 1,000,000 years, Sujin replied gently. "Privacy, the ability to have a thought that belongs only to you. Your hive mind is beautiful, Your Majesty, but it shouldn't come at the cost of personal identity." The Queen tried to reconnect to her children, but the quantum dampening field made it impossible. For the first time, each bug creature had to decide for themselves what to do, what to think, who to be. Many of them were terrified. But others were curious about this strange new feeling called independence. Meanwhile, on the crystal homeworld, something that had never happened in 10,000 years was occurring. The Great Crystal, a massive structure the size of a mountain that connected every crystal alien's mind, began to crack. Engineer Namkitai stood before the ancient structure as it resonated with a frequency that made reality itself seem to vibrate. The crystal aliens had always shared everything, every thought, every memory, every emotion. They were perfect beings of pure logic and shared consciousness. But the frequency Namkitai was broadcasting was tuned to break that connection. As the great crystal fractured, each piece began to glow with its own unique light. For the first time in their history, crystal aliens were having private thoughts. "Stop this!" screamed the Crystal Council, their perfect harmony disrupted by individual panic. "You're destroying everything we are." "No," Namkite said softly, watching as crystal beings across the planet began to experience the strange joy of personal identity. "I'm helping you discover everything you could be. You've shared everything for so long you've forgotten what it means to be yourselves." Some crystal aliens were angry, trying desperately to reconnect to the group mind. But others were fascinated by the new thoughts and feelings that belonged only to them. They were discovering personality, individuality, the ability to disagree with their neighbors and still be friends. The energy aliens faced the strangest transformation of all. For millions of years, they had existed as pure electricity and light, considering themselves superior to all physical beings. They could become any shape, travel at the speed of light, and exist in multiple places at once. Dr. Yoon Yoon-ji changed all of that with a device that looked like a simple metal box. When she activated it, the energy aliens found themselves suddenly trapped in solid bodies made of flesh and bone. They could feel heartbeats, taste air, experience the weight of gravity. Admiral Kethvar materialized on his ship's bridge in a human-like body, gasping as he felt physical sensation for the first time in eons. "This is torture!" he cried, horrified by the strange feeling of having skin and muscles. "This is life," Dr. Yunji replied, appearing beside him with a gentle smile. "You don't have to choose between energy and matter. We'll show you how to be both. Physical existence doesn't make you weaker, it makes you complete." Across the galaxy, the great alien war machine was falling apart, but not through destruction. The humans weren't conquering their enemies, they were freeing them from the limitations they had placed on themselves. The crystal aliens were discovering individuality. The bug aliens were learning independence. The energy aliens were experiencing the joy of physical sensation. This wasn't the revenge everyone expected. This wasn't conquest or domination. This was something much more powerful and much more frightening to those in power. Liberation. Humans were offering every being in the galaxy the chance to become more than they had ever been before, and many of them were starting to like it. The reckoning had begun, but it wasn't the one anyone had predicted. The great hall that had once housed the Confederation's ruling council was completely transformed, where stern alien leaders had once made decisions about keeping humans locked away. Now representatives from hundreds of different worlds sat together in a giant circle. For the first time in galactic history, every known species had a voice in government, including the humans who had been silent for 8 centuries. Ambassador Han Ji-woo walked to the center of the circle, her footsteps echoing in the massive chamber. Around her sat beings of every imaginable form, crystal aliens who now sparkled with individual personality, bug creatures who had learned to think for themselves while still loving their families, energy beings who flickered between solid and pure light, enjoying both forms of existence. 6. Months ago, many of you saw us as invaders, Jiwoo began. Her words instantly translated into thousands of languages by quantum computers. You expected us to seek revenge for 800 years of imprisonment. You thought we would try to conquer you, as we had tried centuries ago. She paused, looking around the circle at faces both familiar and alien. We didn't seek to rule you. We never wanted to be your masters. We sought only to join you as equals. The galaxy is vast enough for all of us, but only if we face it together. The transformation that had swept across the galaxy in just 6 months was unlike anything in recorded history. It wasn't just political, it was personal. Every species was discovering new ways to exist, new ways to think, new ways to experience life itself. The crystal aliens had been the most resistant to change at first. For 10,000 years they had shared every thought, every emotion, every memory. Privacy was a foreign concept that terrified them, but human quantum consciousness technology had given them something amazing: the ability to choose when to share and when to be alone with their thoughts. Zaraki, a young crystal being, stood up in the assembly. Her body sparkled with colors. That had never been seen before. Personal emotions that belonged only to her. I was afraid of being alone in my own mind, she admitted. But now I understand the joy of having secrets, of having thoughts that are mine alone. And when I choose to share them with others, they mean so much more. The bug aliens, or Keth as they called themselves, had undergone an even more dramatic change. For millions of years, they had lived as extensions of their queen's minds, never questioning orders, never having personal desires. Now they were learning to be individuals, while still maintaining their love for their communities. Worker drone Clickter buzzed his wings nervously as he spoke to the assembly. We thought independence meant loneliness. We thought individual thought meant the end of our families. But humans showed us we can be ourselves and still choose to work together. Now when we help each other, we do it because we want to, not because we have to. But perhaps the most amazing transformation had happened to the energy beings, the Velen. For eons they had believed that physical form was a weakness, that pure energy was the highest form of existence. Human technology had forced them to experience both states, and they had discovered something wonderful. Admiral Kethvar, now serving as the Vaelon representative, shifted from his energy form to a solid body as he spoke. I spent millions of years believing that matter was inferior to energy. I was wrong. When I first felt a heartbeat, tasted food, felt the warmth of sunlight on skin, I realized I had been missing half of existence. Now I can choose to be energy when I need to travel fast or think quickly, and I can be matter when I want to truly experience the universe. The changes weren't just individual, they were reshaping entire civilizations. The old monitoring stations that had watched humanity like prison guards were now communication hubs, connecting every world in the galaxy. Instead of spying and control, they carried messages of friendship, trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and scientific discoveries. Admiral Bae Tae-hyun, who had once commanded the secret Shadow Fleet, now led the new Galactic Defense Force. Her ships were crewed by volunteers from dozens of different species, all working together to protect their shared home among the stars. Crystal beings provided perfect communication networks. Bug creatures handled complex repairs with their natural teamwork. Energy beings could scout dangerous areas without risk, and humans contributed their hard-won expertise in thinking differently and solving impossible problems. The old fleet was built to keep us apart, she explained to a group of young cadets from various worlds. The new fleet exists to keep us together. Dr. Lee Jun-ho, the man who had spent centuries watching the Watchers, now oversaw the most ambitious project in galactic history, true interspecies cooperation. From his office on a space station that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, he monitored collaboration projects across 1,000 worlds. On one screen, he watched Keth children and human children playing together in a park that existed in multiple realities at once, built by crystal engineers who had learned to think in individual creative ways. On another screen, he observed scientists from different species working together to solve problems that had puzzled them for millennia. each bringing their unique perspective to create solutions none could have found alone. "It's working," he said to his assistant Zhong Miran, as they watched a crystal artist and a human musician collaborate on a symphony that could only be fully appreciated by beings with different types of senses. 800 years they kept us locked up, thinking it would make us weak, Miran replied, smiling as she watched the data streams showing trade, friendship, and cooperation flourishing across the galaxy. Instead, it taught us the most important lesson of all, Junho said. Patience, the willingness to wait, to learn, to understand before we act. The old humans who tried to conquer the galaxy failed because they were impatient and afraid. We succeeded because we learned to listen first and speak second. The age of human silence was over, but it had given birth to something better. The age of galactic conversation. Every species now had a voice, every world had a choice, and every being had the freedom to become whatever they dreamed of being. It had been worth the wait.